The staircase was narrow, the steps uneven beneath a thick layer of dust. Each footfall sent up tiny clouds, swirling in the dim light like ghosts disturbed from their slumber. The wood creaked under Mac's weight, the sound echoing up the shaft, as if the house itself was groaning in protest at his intrusion. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of neglect and the passage of forgotten years. Mac descended slowly, each step a descent into the unknown. The air grew colder, the silence so profound it pressed in on him from all sides, thick and suffocating. It was the kind of silence that made your ears ring, that made you hyper-aware of your own heartbeat and the soft crunch of dust beneath your shoes. Every movement felt amplified, as if the house was listening, waiting. His flashlight cast a weak, trembling beam, barely piercing the darkness. The light danced across thick cobwebs, their silvery threads glistening on the rough-hewn stone walls. Shadows leapt and twisted, making the narrow passage seem alive. The stairs seemed to stretch on endlessly, spiraling deeper into the earth, the cold intensifying with every step. Mac's breath fogged in the chill, and he shivered, pulling his jacket tighter around him. The silence was broken only by the sound of Mac's own breathing, harsh and uneven in the confined space. It echoed off the stone, filling the darkness with a living presence. Then, just at the edge of hearing, he thought he caught faint whispers, soft, unintelligible, like secrets carried on a breeze. He paused, heart pounding, and turned his head, the flashlight beam slicing through the blackness. But there was nothing, only the oppressive dark and the sense that something unseen was watching. The air grew heavier still, thick with the scent of damp earth and something sharper, metallic, like the tang of old blood or rusted iron. It clung to the back of his throat, making him swallow hard. Somewhere in the distance, a single drop of water fell, the sound unnaturally loud in the silence. A tremor of unease ran through him, prickling his skin and urging him to turn back. This place felt wrong, a violation of the natural order, as if the world above had forgotten this place existed for a reason. Mac hesitated, glancing back up the stairs, the faintest glimmer of daylight barely visible. He considered retreating, but the pull of the unknown, the need to understand what lay hidden, was too strong. He pressed on, driven by a mixture of dread and curiosity. Finally, the stairs ended in a small, cramped landing. Before him stood a single wooden door, its surface battered and scarred by time. The paint was peeling, revealing splinters and deep scratches, as if something had tried desperately to escape, or to keep others out. The silence here was absolute, broken only by the faint thudding of Mac's heart. Mac reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and pushed the door open. The hinges groaned, protesting after years of disuse. A wave of cold air rushed out, swirling around his ankles, carrying with it the faint, unmistakable scent of decay and secrets long buried. He hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside, crossing the threshold into the darkness beyond, where the unknown awaited. The room was identical to his own living room. At first glance, it could have been mistaken for a perfect replica, every detail meticulously preserved. The arrangement of the chairs, the placement of the lamp, even the way the curtains hung in gentle folds, all of it was eerily familiar, as if he had stepped into a photograph of his own home. The same furniture, the same faded rug, the same portrait of a stern-faced ancestor above the fireplace. The armchair in the corner, worn at the arms, looked as though it had been sat in for decades. The rug's intricate patterns were dulled by time, and the portrait's eyes seemed to follow him, just as they did at home. Yet everything was subtly, disturbingly wrong. The colours were muted, drained of warmth, as if someone had drawn a thin veil over the world. Shadows clung to the corners, stretching longer than they should, and the air itself seemed to hum with a low, uneasy energy. The air hung heavy and still, devoid of the usual sounds of the house settling. There was no creak of floorboards, no distant hum of pipes. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked backwards, its hands moving counterclockwise, each tick echoing unnaturally loud in the silence, as if time itself was unraveling. A fire crackled in the hearth, but the flames burned a cold bluish white, casting ghostly shadows that danced along the walls. The books on the shelves were all turned spine inward, their titles hidden from view, as if the stories within were secrets meant to be forgotten. It was a reflection of his world, but twisted, inverted. Every familiar object was present, but altered in some subtle, unsettling way. The mirror above the fireplace drew his attention, its presence commanding and strange. It was an ornate antique, its silver tarnished with age, the frame carved with strange, looping patterns that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. As Mac approached, he felt a chill run down his spine, the temperature dropping with every step. His reflection stared back at him, but something was off. It wasn't just the dim lighting. His reflection seemed older, its eyes filled with a knowing sadness that he didn't recognize. The lines on its face were deeper, the expression more weary, as if it carried the weight of memories he had yet to make. For a moment he thought he saw something move behind his reflection, a flicker of shadow, a suggestion of another presence lurking just out of sight. The room felt colder, the silence pressing in on him. He reached out to touch the mirror's surface, but hesitated. His fingers hovered just above the glass, trembling. What would he find on the other side? A cold, unyielding surface, or something more unsettling? The uncertainty gnawed at him, and for a heartbeat he wondered if the reflection would reach out to meet him. Then he saw him, in the suffocating gloom of the mansion, where every shadow seemed to stretch and breathe. Mac's eyes finally adjusted to the darkness. He realized he was not alone. A figure lay asleep on the sofa, shrouded in the dim light filtering through the dusty windows. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and forgotten memories, and the silence pressed in from all sides. It was Mac, or at least a perfect replica. The resemblance was uncanny, as if a mirror had been placed in the center of the room, reflecting not just his appearance, but something deeper, something essential. Same messy hair, same worn jeans, same tired lines etched around the eyes. Every detail was meticulously copied, down to the faded patch on the left knee and the faint scar above the eyebrow. The doppelganger slept soundly, chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. The only movement in the room was the gentle rise and fall of his breathing, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Mac approached cautiously, each step echoing unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. The floorboards creaked beneath his weight, amplifying his anxiety with every hesitant footfall. He noticed details he hadn't before, a slight difference in the shape of their eyebrows, a subtle asymmetry that made the double seem both familiar and strange. A mole on the doppelganger's neck that Mac didn't have. It was a small imperfection, but it stood out like a secret mark, a reminder that this was not truly him, but something other. He reached out a hand, wanting to touch, to confirm the reality of what he was seeing. But something stopped him. His fingers hovered in the air, trembling, as if an invisible barrier held him back. A primal fear, an instinctive understanding that some lines should never be crossed. It was as if his body remembered something his mind could not, an ancient warning, echoing from deep within. As he watched, the figure on the sofa stirred. The stillness of the room was broken by a subtle shift, a twitch of the hand, a slow turn of the head. The doppelganger's eyes opened slowly, focusing on Mac with a disarming clarity. The gaze was sharp, unblinking, as if it had been waiting for this moment all along. There was no shock, no fear, only a quiet recognition in those familiar yet alien eyes. It was as if the double had always known Mac would come, as if this meeting was inevitable. A slow smile spread across the doppelganger's face, curling at the edges with a deliberate, unsettling slowness. The smile seemed to stretch the boundaries of what was human, hinting at something far older and colder. And in that moment, Mac felt a chill that went deeper than his bones. It was as if the very air had turned to ice, and every instinct screamed at him to run, to escape this impossible encounter. It was a smile that held no warmth, only a cold, unsettling knowing. In that haunted silence, Mac understood. He was not just looking at a copy, but at something that had been waiting for him, something that knew him better than he knew himself.